They found it inside a cave, shrouded in silence and ancient dust. A scroll made entirely of copper, unlike anything ever discovered before. It spoke not of religion, morality, or wisdom. It carried a list of locations and hidden treasures. But the more archaeologists tried to decipher it, the more mysteries emerged. Names of cities that never existed, coordinates leading to vanished places, and details of a technology the ancient world was never meant to know. What is the Copper Scroll? And why do so many believe it holds the key to a lost power? It was in 1952, in the arid hills of the West Bank, that archaeologists were exploring caves near the Dead Sea when they made a discovery no one could have predicted. Amid the fragments of ancient manuscripts, something completely out of the ordinary caught their attention. A thin, metallic sheet rolled up and oxidized by time. It wasn't made of parchment or papyrus, but of solid copper. Experts immediately realized that it didn't match the pattern of the other Dead Sea Scrolls. While the other texts contained psalms, commandments, and religious writings, this one seemed to be a riddle, a secret etched into metal, as if the author wanted to ensure that even millennia later, no one could destroy it. But what it contained was even more unsettling. It wasn't about faith, but something far more earthly. A list of locations, numbers, and treasures. What they had just found was more than a historical artifact. It was the beginning of a mystery that endures to this day. As they carefully unrolled the cylinder, corroded by time, the archaeologists noticed something strange. Very strange. None of the other manuscripts discovered in the Qumran caves had been made of metal, and this one, before them, was inscribed on pure copper. That raised a question that still echoes today. Why would someone use such a difficult material to record a text? The simplest answer would be because it needed to last forever. But why? What was written there that warranted such extreme caution? Unlike papyrus, which easily deteriorates, copper withstands time, water, and fire. It was as if the author wanted to ensure that this message could never be erased, as if he knew that in the future, someone would need to find it. Some scholars believe that the very use of copper suggests the scroll was not religious, but technical, objective, or even military. Others say it was more than that, a map to something that was never meant to be revealed. The material itself was a clue, one that said, what lies within was never meant to disappear. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, which contained prayers, laws, and religious texts, the Copper Scroll shattered all expectations. It didn't speak of God. It didn't speak of faith. It spoke of gold. The text, engraved in columns using ancient Hebrew inscriptions, listed 64 specific locations. Each entry precisely described where sacred objects, coins, silver ingots, and artifacts of immeasurable value were hidden. But there was something even stranger. Many of these locations were described with references that don't appear on modern maps. Names of cities erased by time, or perhaps never officially recorded. And then there were the numbers. Absurd quantities of treasure. Some entries mentioned hundreds of talents of gold, enough to fund an empire. This discovery turned the scroll into more than just an ancient artifact. It became a millennia-old treasure map, and at the same time, a dangerous puzzle, raising a question that still haunts historians to this day. What was really being hidden? And by whom? As scholars began to decipher the Copper Scroll, something started to feel unsettling. Many of the locations mentioned in the text simply didn't exist. They appeared on no modern map. Not even ancient records mentioned names like Matia of the Shadowed Valley or the hill north of the Temple of Winds, places described as hiding vast amounts of gold and sacred artifacts. How was this possible? Three main theories began to circulate. The first claimed that the names were coded, deliberately concealing the true locations of the treasures. The second suggested that these cities had once existed, but were deliberately erased from history, destroyed, burned, or buried beneath layers of silence. But the third theory was even more disturbing. Some believed the scroll was written by a civilization that no longer belongs to our time, a culture that predates the official timeline of history, something that may have existed before the flood or even before recorded history itself. If that's true, then the scroll isn't just a treasure map, it's an echo from a lost world whose cities vanished like smoke, but whose secrets remain buried, waiting to be discovered or feared. With so many mysterious locations listed, scholars began to ask, where did all these treasures come from? The most accepted and most explosive theory is that the Copper Scroll is a secret inventory from Solomon's temple, hidden before the Roman invasion of Jerusalem in 70 AD. According to this hypothesis, the priests, foreseeing the siege and the destruction of the Second Temple, organized a silent escape. Not with the faithful, but with sacred riches. Think about it. The original menorah, the Ark of the Covenant, utensils made of pure gold, and perhaps even hidden writings and scrolls of forbidden power, all carefully divided and concealed in dozens of different locations. The scroll would then be a unique guide, crafted in copper to withstand time, meant to be read only by initiates in the future, or perhaps never found at all. But there's a problem. To this day, none of the mentioned locations have revealed any treasure. Nothing. Total silence. And that raises an even greater suspicion. Could it be that these treasures are still out there? Or have they been protected by something far greater than time? At first glance, the Copper Scroll seems straightforward. Lists of locations and quantities. But the more the text is studied, the more it seems to defy logic. Some directions are vague, others extremely specific. There are passages that mention distances using ancient units and even astrological references, like at the rising of the full moon. Why? Some researchers believe this isn't carelessness, but rather a deliberate system of encryption, as if each line were a puzzle, designed to protect the treasures from those who are not worthy. Others go even further. Some claim the text itself contains hidden layers, words that, when analyzed through numerology or aligned with biblical passages, reveal entirely different meanings. And then there's a third, darker school of thought, that the treasures cannot be found through traditional methods because they are protected by something greater than time or logic, by spiritual forces or ancient technologies, perhaps even by curses. If that's true, then the real mystery of the Copper Scroll isn't what's written, but what was hidden between the lines. Since the Copper Scroll came to light, it has become more than just an object of study. It has become an obsession. Historians, adventurers, treasure hunters, all drawn by the promise of glory, revelations, and unimaginable wealth. But what few talk about is that many never returned. There are unofficial reports of at least 7 expeditions that vanished in the Judean desert between the 1970s and 2000s. And the most chilling part, some of these missions were funded by private entities that keep everything under strict secrecy, including the results. Who are these people? What did they find, or what did they choose to hide? Anonymous testimonies speak of symbols carved into cave walls, disembodied voices, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Others report unexplainable phenomena, compasses freezing, cameras shutting off on their own, and trails that simply disappear. What lies in that desert beyond sand and stone? Is it just paranoia, or is the scroll protected by something that doesn't want to be found? What if the Copper Scroll wasn't just a treasure map, but a forgotten key to something much greater? Some researchers have noticed disturbing similarities between the symbols and terms used in the text and inscriptions attributed to civilizations that never coexisted in the same era. Place names that echo the mythical Atlantis, references to megalithic structures, and even concepts strikingly similar to those found in the legends of Mu and Lemuria. A pattern seems to emerge, that of an ancient knowledge, older than the Bible, older than the Hebrews, older even than Egypt itself. Could the author of the scroll have had access to information preserved since the fall of these civilizations? Or worse, could he have been a remnant of them? This hypothesis changes everything, because if the scroll's text carries fragments of forgotten cultures, then perhaps the treasure it protects is not made of gold, but of something even more powerful, the forbidden memory of a world that came before our own. The few explorers who have ventured near the locations marked by the Copper Scroll report something that cannot be explained by logic or science. Presences. Not animals, not people, but something different. Some speak of shadowy figures moving, without sound. Others describe muffled noises, like whispers in strange, forgotten languages, and always the feeling of being watched, as if whatever is hidden in these places does not want to be found. Some believe the scroll is protected by spiritual entities, invisible guardians of forbidden knowledge, spirits of ancient priests, or even beings that are not of human origin. In esoteric tradition, these are called egregores, thought forms so powerful they gain a life of their own and watch over what they represent. And if these entities are still active, then the real danger isn't in finding the treasure, but in awakening something that has slept for millennia, something that was never meant to wake. After everything that has been revealed, a disturbing hypothesis emerges. What if the Copper Scroll wasn't written to lead someone to the treasures, but to prevent them from ever being found? Think about it. Why engrave a map on copper, a nearly indestructible metal, and hide it in a place nearly impossible to access? Why use symbolic language, cryptic references, and locations surrounded by legends of curses? Maybe the true purpose of the scroll is to warn future seekers not to continue. A desperate record left by ancient priests, not to protect riches from thieves, but to guard against something far more serious, something that, if unleashed, could shift the balance of the world. After all, isn't it strange that even after decades of searching, none of the treasures described have ever been found? Perhaps the greatest secret of the Copper Scroll isn't the gold, but what it's trying to keep sealed forever. Now that you've seen all of this, tell me, what is truly hidden beneath the dust of time? A physical treasure, a spiritual secret, or perhaps a prison sealing something the modern world is not ready to release? The Copper Scroll may seem like just an ancient artifact, but if history has taught us anything, it's that some knowledge was erased for a reason. And if it's trying to resurface, the question is no longer where the treasures are, but what will happen when they are found. If you've made it this far, it's because you feel something in this mystery calling to you too. So take this moment, subscribe to the channel for more forbidden stories, forgotten secrets, and artifacts that were never meant to be touched. Leave a comment. Do you believe the scroll is a map or a warning? And remember, some doors, once opened, can never be closed again.